trying to do critical thinking skills with what the Constitution gives us. Because the Constitution does not provide the answers, and reading it is not sufficient to get to truth. Nevertheless, we should read the Constitution. So how? Well, that's a strange question. How should we read it? Any ideas? It's a big question. It's an open question. Yes?
Reading and ask questions while you're reading.
Okay, good. So are you assuming then that you can't necessarily understand it on your own with your own eyes the first time?
Yeah.
At any level? Yes. So one of the most important how questions under A is that it has to be a group effort. The question then is, who are the experts in the group? Who can guide you? If you're reading a religious text, which the Constitution is our civil religion, so if you're having a question about a religious text, would you need an expert guide? And who might that guide be? A religious leader. But what would be the Constitution's version of that textual expert? Yes?
A historian.
A historian. Good. Does that mean that you have to be a historian to understand it? No. But what might a historian provide?
You have to understand the historical context.
Okay,
of
good.
the document.
This is really important, the context. So when we go back today and we read some of the founding documents, why is that so important to understand what they thought they were doing?
Kind of the sign of the times, what was
Right.
going on at the time.
Okay, but is the Constitution still with us today? So what would be the equivalent of somebody who would read it with a modern eye? Because if we're still governed by the same Constitution and every single person who wrote it is dead, and what if we can't crack into their skull any further than an archive? What do we do today? How do we read it today with today's issues, pressures, and divisions? What do we do? Okay, Bob?
Political scientist.
Thank you. Okay. So are you implying then that the Constitution has something to do with politics?
Absolutely.
So what is the connection here? If it's not just an archival document that is somewhat archaeological, if you've been to the archives, you see it goes into the ground. That has a Raiders of the Lost Ark feel to someone of my generation. But if it's still relevant today, how do we discuss it in today's terms? So political science is good. What about journalists? Can you read the newspaper and get a sense
Just
of
from
what the
somebody's perspective.
from somebody's right? Although they're supposed to be objective.
But they're not.
Neither are these people. But I appreciate the flatter. So the point is here, it's not just context, it is relevant. What is the relevance to political questions? As somebody who's, and I'm sure you're all following the election this year, we don't have to discuss it again, nobody's going to divulge anything. But does the Constitution matter for this election? Yes. Why? Because the two people who are running for president and the 435 people running for the House and the 30-ish group of people running for re-election in the Senate, are they all constitutional interpreters too? Are you, as a voter, a constitutional interpreter?